I've bought quite a number of albums in the past couple of months, and I figured why not show it to you guys. So I am here to recount the booty as it is. So let's just dive right in. So a few months back I went over to London, Ontario for one of the festivals that I work with. And while there, I used to actually live in London, so I went to a lot of my favorite record stores and I picked up about 3 good albums. First of which is Gentle Giant's 3 Friends. I don't actually like the variant cover of 3 Friends because it looks a lot like their original album of just Gentle Giant. I much prefer the English cover for that, but you know, semantics. The music is still amazing on this album. And I love it. It's one of my favorite Gentle Giant albums, and if you aren't familiar with Gentle Giant, this is actually a good opening for the band as it's a little bit more accessible, but it still has a lot of the signature Gentle Giant themes. The other 2 albums that I picked up were both from Triumvirat. Now I've showed Triumvirat in the past, but I picked up their first album, Mediterranean Tales. I haven't actually listened to this yet. It's one of the few Triumvirat albums I have yet to hear, so I'm very excited to hear that. And the other one is Pompeii from New Triumvirat. I heard this back in high school and I really enjoyed it. I love that last song on this album and it's one of my favorites. Not their best album, but definitely a good listen. The rest I've picked up here in Toronto, and we have a great selection of record stores. If you guys have a chance to come down or up, it is a great place. I can give you some recommendations of my favorite personal record stores. Maybe I'll do a video about that. But if you have any questions, definitely let me know and I can, give some opinions. First up, we have Harmonium's first album. These guys were a progressive rock band from the 70s, French-Canadian, so everything on here is en français, c'est bon. It's great music. Not my favorite album from the boys, but definitely has some great music, and it introduced us to what these guys are capable of. Their follow-up album is much better, but this one was a great starting point, so great pickup from these guys. From the same store, I picked up 2 Renaissance albums. The first one is Turn of the Cards, and the other one is actually my favorite one, Scheherazade and Other Stories. The second side is all one song, and I love that song so much. It's Scheherazade, it's the tale of the 101 Arabian Nights and what Scheherazade did to stay alive. So I love both of these albums, some really good progressive rock from the 70s, and one of the rare bands that used a lead female vocalist. There wasn't a whole lot, and I'm actually really disappointed about that. I really hope that we get more female influence from the progressive rock scene now, because back then we only had a handful of them, and this was one of them. So if you haven't heard Renaissance yet, these 2 are a great starting point. I highly recommend Scheherazade if you haven't already heard of it, as well as Turn of the Cards. It's a really nice album. Nothing too crazy. There's a lot more harmonization and a lot more emphasis on creating music itself as opposed to pushing the boundaries, but great music. But speaking of pushing the boundaries, I picked up one of the last King Crimson albums that I need for my collection, Discipline. I've been holding off picking up on this album because I didn't like what King Crimson was doing in the 80s, and this was kind of that starting point. True, it still has a lot of the really good King Crimson stuff on it and a lot of their signature stuff like Discipline and Indiscipline. But for me, I didn't like it. It just felt way too 80s, and I always felt like the 80s was a so odd time for music, and this was definitely one of those odd albums. Now that being said, there's still a lot of really good stuff on here. I really like Indiscipline, even as strange as it is, and I don't know. I mainly picked it up to complete more of my collection, but it's not what I'm going to be listening to as often as some of their other works. And of course, we have a bootleg! I love me some bootleg, and this is a Peter Gabriel one, so the audio, because it's a bootleg, isn't the greatest. It's one of those unofficial bootlegs, but there's actually, it's very good in terms of the layout. I have had some bootlegs where it's essentially just a blank record. So I like the fact that they actually took some time and they list what's on it, and they've got like who recorded it and where. So the songs themselves are really good, really well done, but it's a bootleg. It's essentially some guy in the audience holding a microphone out and capturing all the sounds. But it's pretty good. It's pretty comparable to some of the classic bootlegs. So those were all the records from the past that I picked up. Now here are some of the newer ones that I picked up. And first up, the last Decemberance album that I needed. I've been looking for this guy for the longest time, and when they said they were re-releasing it for Record Store Day, I was so excited. The only problem was I didn't get out there early enough, so all of them were picking up. But luckily, I was able to find the original. Again, this is one of my favorite Decemberance albums, and I love the fact that they almost have like a play card in here where you can open it up and there's almost like a book going on. So I love a lot of these graphics. And I love just diving into this music, and it has a lot of my favorite songs from the group. So I was very excited to finally see it, and I grabbed it, and now I have all, or at least most of the Decemberances. I think the only ones I don't have now are the Always a Bridesmaid singles. The last two are kind of related, so I'll go for, I finally picked up Hand Cannot Erase. I already reviewed this album, and if you haven't checked it out, I've done it right over here. You can view it. But this album, the more I listen to it, the more I love it. In my review, I said that one of the last songs, Ancestral, didn't really make sense to me, but the more I'm listening to it, the more I'm starting to get it, and I am just loving it. And I love a lot of the pictures on this album as well. It comes with a book, and let's see if I can't grab that book. Yeah, it comes with a little book in it, and I love a lot of the graphics on here. I finally found it. I finally broke down and picked it up. It was a little expensive, but it's good music, and I've been listening to it almost non-stop, so I don't mind. And if this was Steven Wilson's latest release, I picked up his first release. Man, this album is a lot of fun. If you haven't heard it, On the Sunday of Life, whenever I listen to this album, I can't help but giggle. There are a lot of really interesting songs on here, but it's just very, very strange. There's a lot of really odd and oddball songs on this. But it does have a lot of signature songs that he loves to play, like Radioactive Toy. My favorite is Nine Cats, and the fact that Radioactive Toy blends right into Nine Cats was a really good kind of structuring of the album. But again, lots of giggles. So the two are very good kind of a pair off. The latest one and the first, the one that started it all. And that is about it. That is everything that I picked up over the last couple of months. What did you guys think about it? What was your favorite thing that I showcased today? Which one do you want me to review? Maybe I'll review one of those guys. And that's the booty. Notes out.